Good afternoon and welcome to BizTech's Asian Midday Market Watch. Our guest today is Vishnu, Head of Economics and Strategy at Mizuho Bank in Singapore. Vishnu, great to have you on the show.
As always, it's a pleasure to be here, Brian. Thanks for having me on.
Now, before we start, let's take a look at how crypto markets are performing. We've got Bitcoin at 49,539.8. It's up 0.31%. Ethereum continues its surge. It's at 3,814. It's up 1.46%. Now we'll take a look across the region in terms of regional markets. Japan is up almost 2%. It's at 29,098.13, up 1.94%. The Shanghai Composite is down 0.15% at 3,591.53. The Hang Seng is at 25,948.28. It's down 0.54%. The ASX 200 is at 7,518. It's up 0.43%. The Kospi is at 3,198.95. It's up 0.73%. Closer to home, we've got Bursa Malaysia's FBM KLCI at 1,581.95. It's down marginally 0.02%. And rounding up the numbers, we've got the Straits Times Index SGX at 3,082.47, down 0.21%. Vishnu, what's your view on how markets have performed this morning?
A little blurry. So it's a little bit like, I think markets, depending on how they were positioned, going into the Nonfarm payrolls, are either turning a little bit more cautious or enjoying the tailwinds that they saw from the US markets the day before. One of the problems with the market like that is if you're trying to pin down causation, it's like the game of pinning the donkey's tail on the donkey. If the tail is moving, it's not the donkey.
Now, the expectations on the non-farm payroll is about, according to a Reuters survey, about 750,000. Now, that's after rising about 943,000 in July. What are your expectations?
But we've had a June and July that have been very strong. So they are in the ballpark of 940,000, deviated very little. If you take the ADP indication, this could be quite a bit of a shocker coming in at 500 to 600,000. But typically, ADP has not had a very strong correlation with NFP. Okay. And more often than not, NFP tends to outperform somewhat. So we don't have any strong expectations. We do expect that it'll be appreciably weaker. But what's important for us is this, because expectations are already lower, like you rightly pointed out, that's about the ballpark that we have even from Bloomberg. It's about 750,000. That's one. And you also have an ADP that's much lower. Here's the deal. The number needs to be significantly lower than that to present itself to be inferred as a dovish surprise for the Fed, right? So that's the main takeaway for us.
Okay, now we've just got news that Japan's Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga will not be running in the upcoming election, and markets responded by rising sharply. What's your view on this case?
I'm going to hide behind the donkey's tail for a while, but also I think there are a few reasonings that we can go around here. One is, if in fact he's not running, then he has got the political capital to do what's needed to get through COVID. So he won't be thinking of re-election risks, so on and so forth. So that position is not foremost on his mind. And he also made statements such as the safety of the people is the most important to him. So there may be some, I think, confidence around A, how COVID will be tackled, and B, how they can forge policy going forward. So those may be the initial optimism, but as always, it is way too early to tell. And we are the noisy part of the week. So we're not exactly sure what we are hearing in the wind.
Okay, we've however got negative news out of China today, more negative news. Caixin Market Services Purchasing Managers Index came in at only 46.7 against July's of 54.9. Earlier this week, the official non-manufacturing PMI showed also contraction for the first time since early 2020. That's one piece of negative news. Second piece of negative news this morning out of China, the cybersecurity regulator just released sweeping draft rules regulating recommendation algorithms. So that's the second piece that's going to impact quite a number of companies. The third piece of news is also the fact that Alibaba fell more than 3% following reports that they have to invest something like 100 billion yuan, or about 15.5 billion, for common prosperity. So there's a social reason behind that by 2025. Now, earlier this week you were on the show and you mentioned that investors may be rotating out of China, perhaps to India. Given all this negativity around China, just reinforced that today again. What sectors do you see in India that foreign investors are going to be going into?
I mean, that's a very good point that you brought up, and I love that you used the new buzz term, common prosperity. It turns out it's not that common, and it's not prosperity for all at the same time. But here's the thing, the rotation out of China is a very tricky thing, because we need to differentiate between the reflex of just substituting out and getting into something else that's really like the salvage trade, versus what's a true and enduring substitute. In China's tech space, we're talking about the software related tech, such as the platform, so on and so forth. We don't really have a great substitute per se. Whereas I think for India, the stock markets are really buoyant on two things. One is we've seen activity continuing to pick up, which means they think the industrial performance, so your usual industrial sectors, be it ONG, building, all of this is going to come back. And there's also the sense that the RBI will be able to balance policy finely enough such that it keeps credit and liquidity quite loose. As it is, India's liquidity is very loose. And I think that's really also giving the markets a lot of buoyancy. If we get a Fed or NFP read that's going to also suggest low yields and a soft dollar, all the more India is going to look very favorable. The large picture, you're absolutely right. Strategically, investors getting out of China, if they're taking a 10, 15-year look on it, India is the natural answer. But I have a suspicion that we won't quite find the answer today, right here, right now. It's an evolving story.
Now, Vishnu, thank you very much for speaking to us, and thanks for your insights.
My pleasure.
We've been speaking to Vishnu Varadan, Head of Economics and Strategy at Mizuho Bank, on BizTech's Asian Midday Market Watch. I'm Brian Fernandez. Please check out our Facebook and LinkedIn pages, like and subscribe them, please, and check out our website, www.biztech.asia. Thanks a lot for tuning in.